So if you mic me as well first, you don't mind. So welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed lunch. I thought lunch was very nice. Yes? Good, excellent. Thank you for your feedback. Always appreciated. We're going to move, and we're going to keep because we've decided that we're not always necessarily that comfortable being in the big stage. You know, that some of us are less showy than you might think. But also this is going to be quite an informal part of things. But what we're going to start with is I'm going to hand over to Mike, who's going to explain a little bit about our big plan for a networking event.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Well, to be exact, David and Mike are going to be explaining it, but I wanted to get a word in edgeways, so. So, big and really brilliant and positive news, I believe, for rural networking and for the ENRD is, it is now up and running and agreed that in the spring, we will be able to, we'll be holding a big, really big 2-day conference on networking for 450 people, 2 days. Now, we've not had any such event as this in the whole of this programming period. So we're in the 5th year of operation now, and this is the first time that we've done something. So or will have done something. So it's really, really significant that that we can do this, and that we've got the resources, and the Commission are very, I mean, they're pushing us, they're not just supportive of us. And it's also doubly so, as I think from when we discussed it beforehand, that in practical real terms, sort of about now, maybe next month, the ENRD has been sort of operating in practice for 10 years. And so there's a whole wealth of things that we've done it in 10 years that we've improved at. There's a whole set of changes that have been happening because now we're 2 networks. We're also in the second programming period. And so there's this huge wealth of information and lessons and learning to collect. And there's and very much we want to make this event something that really is of the networks, not something that's just a Brussels conference. So very, very much it's brilliant news. I think that it's confirmed for the 11th and 12th of April 2019. And the purpose of this afternoon is to get your input into how we can really make it a networking event in the proper sense of the word, with all of the national rural networks and network support units and others involved. And then the only other thing I would like to flag is that the team here will be sharing a lot of ideas. These are not things which are definitely agreed. So on the one hand, we really want to have a great collective brainstorming, but on the other hand, I would ask everybody here, please, really seriously, nothing is agreed. There may be some things which we think are a great idea, but they do not happen. And there'll be good reasons for why they don't happen. Maybe they're too expensive, maybe it's inappropriate for some reason that we haven't realized yet in the policy dimensions. So in the spirit of collective brainstorming for good purpose, because it must be useful, because it will cost a lot of money, so it's got to be useful. That's what we're sharing with you this afternoon, but equal is this responsibility that by sharing these things, please don't assume, oh yes, I can do that, the contact point has promised this, the Commission have said that. We haven't. And so we're at the thinking stage. But I don't want to be negative, just did want to make that clear. So, David and colleagues, back to you.
Yep. So, the components that we have put together in terms of what we're saying, Mike said the date, 11th and 12th. So we've got 2 days, 1.5 days, certainly some time. These are, again, things for discussion, that we can spend in a single space We've got the egg in Brussels, and that's a large space that we can do quite a lot in. So we want to think about how do we use that best? What are the components we could do? Number of strands is the word we've used. Number of strands that are possible. And these are just ideas we've come up with. What would we want to do if we had that space? If we're talking about networking, one of the things that's been said already is looking at the widest definition of rural networks. It's all the people in the room, but it's all the people that you're dealing with. How do we get as many of them into a room as possible? So what do we want to do? First thing there, stakeholder involvement. How we build networks, also possibly how we transform networks looking forward. There's a bit of looking at where we are and how we got to here, and great that we spent 10 years and we got to here, but where do we go next from here? What's the next stage? So maybe that's part of the process. And I don't want to say too much because I want to give you your space, literally, to talk about this and think about this. Policy in action, how the policy actually works, how it delivers, how we can make it deliver more, where the policy will be going, and where the next generation of policy is going to affect the role of us as networks, and not necessarily just rural, but agriculture and rural. So what we think about in terms of the directions going. Leader, CLLD, giving it its own space is one of the thought processes at the moment. You know, we've got the opportunity to have a meeting. We could be bringing the leader actors, the project promoters to that to make sure there's some involvement right along the chain. The networking ecosystem, not only thinking about what we do as rural networks, but thinking about, if you like, what are the other networks and how do we link with them? The other networks that are alongside us that deliver on regional policy, deliver on social activity. What else is out there that we should be connecting with as networks? And networking in action. What it is we do, what it is we do next. Now, these are all just strands. But what we've said and what Mike's articulated is this is meant to be more than a conference. This is meant to be a networking event where we can allow as much interaction as possible, as much space as possible for discussion, but with something that certainly is productive and keeps us moving in a certain direction. So, ideas, again, for more about the spatial composition of what we'll do. And this is a genuine question. What will we do? What we could do is have, certainly, the more conventional aspect is having a main plenary area for what we would have traditionally called a conference, but we've said it's more than that. But have a main plenary. What would we want to discuss in there? What are the main threads that everyone would want to discuss? Could we have workshops rather than breakouts? Maybe some things happening side by side? Areas we want to discuss, areas that we want to focus on. What would we want to discuss if we had that audience? We might be talking about in the region of 450 people that we could get together. What would we want to have as discussion topics for them? And I've said what some of the strands could be. Some of the strands might be workshops. Some of the strands might be in that main discussion session. These things are up for grabs. And we can keep some of these things up for ideas, to generate ideas of what we might want to do. And it's possible, and it has to really be foreseen, but would there be a value in having a marketplace where we could have some interaction? And maybe that's simply the networks telling us what they do, but something that's come up a lot is how do we get simple messages across, and how do we get them across in a very visual sense? That's come up a lot in our thinking, and I mean our thinking in this room, about what we can do. How do we do that? And a lot of words around that about what we might want to do. By the way, for reference, these are all pictures of previous events at the Egg. So just to give you some feel for the space and what we could do. I don't want to say too much more than that because I want to give you some ideas to frame what we might do. But we want to get you thinking about what would we do in a large space like the Egg. So what's the Egg? The Egg's beside, some people have been, some people may have attended a leader conference there before, but it's in Brussels, it's beside Garde Midi, it's a large conferencing space. And it looks a bit like this. So what you have in that is lots of space where we could do different things. You have an auditorium that will hold 900 people, probably half that if we do cabaret style, so that's easy enough to do round tables and 450 people. There's a riverside. has habitually been used for perhaps poster exhibitions, those kind of things, and for lunching. Grand Hall, used for various functions, may not be used. It's there, we have the space, but the question is, how do we use that? And then other large spaces where we can have different sessions, different activities going on. So we've got a lot of space that we can use, and we could come up with lots of ideas of how to use it, and we have come up with some ideas of how to use it. But we thought we'd hand a lot of that over for you to discuss what you might like to do in that kind of space. So we've got all that space, we've got a couple of days, we've got some ideas of strands and activity. Anyone notice that big space behind you yet? Because that's not a kid's zone, as it might look right now. But for those of you that are familiar with our exercises and our strange, warped minds, we've always tried to do interactive activities, and it's post-lunch, and it would be very easy for us to give you a long presentation, but the long presentation is finished now. So we're going to get you up and get you doing something. Okay? So for those of you that have been to previous meetings, one thing we did in Prague was about how do we simplify messages, and that's been a theme for this morning. We're going to ask you to do that, and to simplify your message and to make it very visual. So can I ask everyone to basically follow me down to that space there? And if you just stay there just now, I'll try and explain what we're going to do. Because I need my 3 supporters, first of all. So if I can ask Mike, Flavio's already in position, and where's Gaia? There you are. If you go along down here. So I've just said that there's 3 big blocks of things that we could do, okay? Mike's going to take up position in the marketplace, and we'll have people supporting depending on the numbers. Okay, so how this has been designed is, imagine that you're at the start of, this is the starting line here. It's actually also covering a cable, but never mind that. But you're at the starting line of the conference there, and that's the end point. So think about time. Gaia's called this the line of time and space. Okay, so this is the end of the conference here. Yeah, it goes, so that's the way that the conference is run. What would you like to do within that? We're going to give you a certain amount of time to be defined. But what we'd like you first to do is, what would you be most interested in doing? Would you be most interested in discussing? We've got 3 broad topics that you can start in. So, which is more interesting to you? What we discuss in the main conference, the main plenary session, what we discuss in what we've called Workshop Corner, but that might be workshops throughout the 2 days, and what you might think about to do in the marketplace. Would you like to vote with your feet and either go to conference, down here, with Gaia, marketplace, or workshop corner? Which one do you find most interesting? There does not need to be an even split, because we can split you up further once we get there. After you. Something very satisfying about a look of bewilderment. Hello? If you manage to sell the stuff, Flavio, that's a bonus, okay? So, what we have here is 3 large groups, and, well, 2 large groups and 1 smaller group. This smaller group is small and perfectly formed, that's okay. So Gaia can look after them, I think, on her own. What I'm going to ask my colleagues to do is, Laura, can you support Flavio here? And I think Veronica, where's Pilar's there? Pilar and Carlos, if you can support the marketplace, because it's got the larger group. And feel free to split this group up. You don't have to remain tied to your zone. But let me explain what it is that we want you to do. When we had a communication workshop, we said use 3 pictures to tell a story. We're being really generous. We're going to ask you to choose 5 objects to tell a story. So we're going to ask you in your individual teams to choose 5 objects that might tell us what it is you want to do. So let's keep the message nice and simple. You can write things down for those of you that are hard of thinking and hard of creativity. And we have got a flip chart, take a sheet and use it. But we want you to find 5 objects that would say what you want to do in the marketplace. And it's what you want to do, not what we want to do. So that's over to you. Flavia, you can split this group up how you want, and if you think that it needs a bit more support, Veronica, you're standing slightly in the middle, we'll see which way it works, yeah. You're fine with what you're doing. So the first 20 minutes or so is using the objects available. Obviously, you're going to have a fight for certain of the objects. But think of the objects as being representative, okay? A duck is not necessarily a duck. A duck can have many different meanings. Not sure what they might have mean. But, oh yeah, he wants a duck. But imagine you said, I want a corner for generation renewal. I'd like it to be in the marketplace because I think we should get the NRNs there in that area talking about generational renewal. You might decide that what you want to use is take the egg for the idea. You might take the shoe for generational renewal. You might take whatever. Wait, I'm giving you ideas. I'm just getting you started. But the creativity is over to you. From here, on you go, and you'll be supported by the various people in the room, and then we will get to the question, surprise, surprise, the really obvious question you're going to get to, I know, is what are you going to do in the conference? Over to you now. 10 seconds more. It's for them to choose. They can put the objects on the line, they can stand on the line, they can say, this object A1, this object A2. If you can help me to make sure that everyone's clear, it's for them to decide. Mike, sorry, you can split this group up if you want. If you want to split into 2 teams, you can split into 2 teams. Right. Absolutely.
In case you want to discuss animal welfare, you can have a look at the...
But they are baby ducks, so that's you.
Sorry? In my case, we are designing we don't want to have it overloaded, so it's not that we will have all the time workshops all the time. You might want to ask for some time just to connect with the others. Or you might want to know. We're considering also we've been in a system and it's really good to us time just to have eye contact with the others. No words at all, just to look at each other and try to connect before actually being capable to work together. And then we are involving also exactly. So European organization. That's a very good point.
Well, I'm just saying, are you targeting people that are involved, or are you targeting people external?
Definitely. And this is pretty much about also who we are involved in. Depending on the topic and if you want to tailor your knowledge.
Session as well. So we're also doing a round table. We start from the tables as well. So that's it. Yeah, but
Maybe we can work with this with when you imagine that you want to highlight the importance of networking, and it's a celebration, so 10 years anniversary, what exactly do you think it's worth as an issue for the potential future? What do you think what we could communicate in terms of the good value of your work and the good value of having a network? What do you think is worth to focus our attention on to develop a content for your work?
Are we focusing more on the past or on the future?
In a way, and we are involving also sisters networks.
is there something Facebook?
Oh, so that's everyone else can. So in
You get something like this, the other thing is,
find out who else wants to bring along this our own
because I'll switch it off. The question is what's the objective? What is the objective? Is the objective to see that the NRN is adding value, not doing, or what has been added value, and that you want to continue with the network going forward. So you've got two elements here. What is the objective that the NRT wants, and that's the network wants? What is the added value? What is the added value it gives to the program? And what the reason is going forward, would you expect the NRN to
Do we bring politicians with us to show impact and value?
Yes. It comes back to the agency.
Do you want to wax?
Yes, we need to watch.
No, but that's what was the speech
the future. So about the future in progress. So exactly. And coming back to your question, so indeed that's the point. So we have to involve lots of representatives from member states. And there's a big reason for that also in the future. Because for regulation, the proposals are in this AG conformity. So it's something really huge involving the people. So
Do we do something easy? Do we just take our steering committee with us? Okay. That's the easy solution. Bringing the steering committee with us, and then the focus has to be on the future of networking in the next period. Because they already know what the NRN are doing. So So we need to make sure that networking continues in the next period, especially if the programs are basically naturally driven. But smart villages has to be one. Both in what has been done before, because it's already been done, and not just under the term, but also how to plan for the future, so that it's not just everything we do, which maybe says it's a bit better. We need teams within smart villages, and we're talking multiple workshops under the main theme.
But if you think of how networking has contributed towards progress of identify any specific
Any smart village, that is, any village that is being smart now before the term was launched. The smart villages already exist. One village activist who've been doing for a long time when asked, what do you think about smart villages, he said, well, it's something we've been doing for 30 years. It's nothing new to them. It's just, now we have an initiative, but that doesn't mean that villages haven't been smart before. But now we need to focus on it.
It's interesting to discuss about how you can make a CFP, but you might want to present some
superstars within
exactly.
within the European network, because we need to let people come. So we have heroes within the network,
yes.
like David Lamb.
Does it mean in a way that you want to showcase, again, good practices and in a way, rural champions?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah?
It's going to be a difficult process, but
best practices must be everything, but it's better to focus on a topic for best practice. But to propose innovation and environment for best practice, be more precise in the methodologies and the practice.
What about to say you do have the workshops? You might have 3 or 4 workshops set up.
same with smart villages. There will be a main theme, smart villages, but then it's, mobility, digitalization.
We like the idea of workshops, then just have themed workshops around that go to a certain workshop like that. The ones that have been identified as fighting less
What about the idea of being diversified instead of being without trying to
Impact is one theme, whether it's impact communication, impact evaluation. That needs to be
need something about evaluation. 10 years, been running the network 10 years. How successful is it? How do you know?
How measurable is the
We're constantly evaluating output. Impact evaluation.
Do the process of the network.
It's going to be like an election.
need to evaluate it. That's also a topic we need to discuss here, because if we know that networking works, but we can't assign a number or an indicator for it, do we need it? Is it just, okay, it works?
And how do we demonstrate that the network works? That's actually what we want to do with this conference.
We know it works. It's also been
It's also about like approaching the ocean.
and since we have the
And it's not always
since we have the managing authorities with us, if in the next period it's going to be a CAP network.
will be important.
Yeah, it can't be just the same resources we have now to run the CAP network, which is going to be much bigger. And then we need a workshop on that as well.
On the needs, on the needs for capacity development.
The CAP network.
CAP network.
Yes.
But wouldn't that be part of the, in a way, future CFP? It's something more detailed.
Yeah, it's in.
teams. And also the reflection of the target group, it's relevant for any of the topics.
Best practices, innovation. So like, it's great.
Because we have at least 3 very clear-cut topics: the rural youth,
Yeah, the best practices. And this would
innovation
be probably
environment, smart villages,
the
then the future of
TP.
CAP, communication activities of networks as such.
Anything else?
The population of the rural areas?
The population.
Yeah, rural quality of life. Quality of life.
Could it be linked to smart villages or rural youth?
And also, and in a way, would it be a team that you can use to highlight the contribution of the network?
But if the workshops are going to run like for 2 hours or 1 hour, the teams can't be too big because otherwise it becomes blah, 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 blah. You identify a couple of challenges and then that's the end of the workshop. So the more we narrow it down, the more concrete actions or ideas we might get. Integration, yeah.
Post-its. I didn't say post-its, Flavio.
What?
I don't remember saying post-its.
It came spontaneously. It came out like that.
Somebody mentioned when we were talking about rural superheroes, somebody mentioned your name.
Did they? I don't believe it.
Post-its were there. So.
Population.
Just to make things interesting. I quite like this being the voice of God thing. It's good to get used to it. Just to make it interesting, can I have everyone's attention for a minute? No, apparently not. No. Well, do you know what? It's fine. They'll have to lose out. What I'm going to allow is if you see any objects that are more interesting in the other areas, this is a free steal window. So have a look at the other objects from the other areas, and if you think something's more relevant from their area than yours, I'm giving you a free... Oh, you stole the trolley already. Well, Guy was trying to steal things before we began. But this is your open window for stealing of objects, okay?
what are the NRNs bringing? What are the networks bringing to this? Have you got to that question yet?
Well, yeah, we kind of answered the question, and people might tell you more better in this point. So, in the sense, we want to showcase, yeah, in the end, the best practice is that the network enabled across Europe. So that's the point where we will do on the workshop.
Good. Fine. That's kind of thing. I mean, so there's two questions: is what do you want to see in the conference, in the workshops, in the event? What do you want to see in the workshops, and what will the networks do? Great.
And it's very much, we ended up saying that we do need to identify the target groups of people who want to.
So that's what the networks also do.
Yes.
They help to identify target groups.
But the idea is of an event and workshop and content that it's about the past achievements and also expectation for the future, especially in looking ahead and the changes that the network will be facing involving the computers. It will be a CAP network for which there will be need of capacity building. So definitely some content of the workshop required is about the future CAP. Thanks a lot.
Good. So now the big question for me is, we've got a little bit of time left, a few minutes, 10 minutes left, so maybe more, is who's your rapporteur? Hooray! Any volunteer?
That's the future capital. So it will depend on the national regulation or national local regulation legislation.
You can do that for building bridges.
We need to tear down the old programs with the excavator.
But it might be, as we were discussing before, it doesn't need to be on best practices in a general manner. You can identify a specific topic, and then within that topic you can present just what you consider best practice to be an idea of the work that you can do, which is different from having an exhibition of.
May I steal this?
I don't know, you should ask the No.
You have another.
You have to pay the leasing.
What do you want to destroy?
Okay.
Can we get the fire engine on top of adding value? Are we just putting out fires?
I wanted to steal. No, we have them there. No, I want to take some pictures.
Watch the Scots
So, ladies and gentlemen, okay, if I can have your attention. Yeah? Yeah, please. Okay, so we're going to start over here. Flavio, who's your rapporteur? Colin, we will have to find him a microphone, and there's one just here. That's fine. Excellent. So, Colin, your 9 objects.
9 objects.
You took 5 objects and turned them into 9. It's not been done since Jesus. So
No.
carry on.
Okay, I won't do it that way. Our task, we wanted to, as part of the conference, there will be some workshops. We needed to define exactly what we wanted to do with the workshops, how many there might be, but particularly a flavour of what the workshops might consider, and using some of the objects to try and explain to you in a graphic form sort of what the workshops may be around. Underpinning all of this was a very, very important message. I know it's on a post-it rather than an object, but it's this bit about adding value to rural networks. Now, we're very, particularly sort of UK-wide, we're very, very keen to show other people that the value that we add couldn't be found elsewhere within a network. And the networks do great work. We keep people together, we get people together, we get them under one roof. Unlike other sort of communication teams, we can actually do that, and we add great value elsewhere. But what we also want to do, we wanted from this session is to say what we wanted to get from the workshops themselves, and also people would take something away from a workshop that they wouldn't have otherwise taken without the input of the network itself. So this is this bit about taking away. You take away something in a rucksack because we've actually fed new information to people, and the new information that we've actually fed to people is giving them information on the new CAP network and how we communicate those activities. Now, specifically, what we want to try and capture within these workshops are the social inclusion, depopulation, the challenges of depopulation, rural youth and young farmers, supply chains, and environmental concerns as well. But there's also that bit about we want to, what our NRNs are going to turn up at these workshops, they will run the workshops. They will run the workshops and they will bring with them the best practices from, across member states on innovation and work in the environment. But also there's something we need to do as well. After 10 years, the celebration of 10 years of the networks working together, we need to first of all recognise that we've done a great job, but also the fact that there are certain people, there are certain organisations that do deserve some extra credit maybe. But we also need to know, over the 10 years, has it been a success? Has a rural network across member states actually been a success? And we do have to be quite hard on ourselves and ask about the evaluation of the impacts of networking. I know it's easy to say, of course, we add the value that no other comms team could possibly add, but we have to be certain as well. And how can we be certain? Well, we have to do a bit of hard work ourselves and do the evaluation. Try and measure some outputs. I know it's not always easy to do. I think I've covered it. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin. Excellent. And that's great. I especially like the bit about what the networks are going to bring in, the networks running the workshops, and understanding that we need to define a target audience and talk about what the networks have done. For the sake of time, and I'm glad you were managing to illustrate your story using ducks, grass, and Batman as well. That was good creativity.
Can you come and be?
Right, James, you're taking the floor.
Yeah, so in terms of the marketplace, we were split up into 3 groups. So this is just our group's interpretation of maybe what the marketplace should look like. First of all, I suppose we came up with the text here that there should be reduced text. It should be pictures. So when we're profiling the NRN profiles, should be something along this, but less text and pictures of each NRN in the different member states. And the wow, it should wow people the minute they walk in of what these NRNs are doing. So we want the marketplace to showcase the work of the NRNs, the different actions that they're taking, the different methods and so on. So there needs to be a clear evolution of what's happened over 10 years, how the networks have moved on, what different tools, etc. that they're using. We use the wedding day card to symbolise the different communication tools that we're all using. I think myself and John were talking about interactive maps earlier on to showcase projects, poster presentations, workshops, you know, all those type of tools we use. We need to showcase how we've moved along that timeline as well. And also that it's targeted teams, that within the workshop, or sorry, within the marketplace, that there's targeted sections, whether it's leader or it's environmental, bioeconomy, things like that as well, that's targeted. One of the major things I suppose that NRNs do, and their main function, one main function is cooperation and bringing people together. So we need to highlight that as well to the people that are there, to, you know, because if there's lags attending, they may need to be aware that that's our function, that we can help them along those ways. And maybe that's a case that I was pointed out in Ireland as well, that we all work in silos, that we need to make everyone aware of the functions. So that's where the shoes come in, and our ducks and our cows and our pigs are all together about bringing people together. I can't remember what the trolley was for.
Somebody from the group remember?
What was the trolley about? The trolley.
The trolley was the starting point, but yeah.
We can't remember. Success story, about gathering success stories, I think. So
Perfect sense of what you say.
so that's our group.
Thank you, James.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, James.
We actually split into 3 different groups for the marketplace. So is there the second?
Yeah, we are the second group. Our idea is actually quite simple and small one, but very, how to say, journalistic, so to say. Actually, we imagine that marketplace is a huge area which is divided to separate boxes, and each member state actually have his own box. But in the classical way, National Rural Network during that kind of events, he talk about his works, about the program, best projects, best practices, and so on. But our idea actually is to do that thing in opposite way. So we are inviting a different, how to say, project representatives or some network, how to say, general managers, and probably these projects were how to say, initiated by National Rural Network. So our idea that our stakeholders are talking about the NSU job that we made during the last 10 years, for example. Because in Estonia, to be honest, we have initiated plenty of short supply chain networks, for example, so they can easily promote us, promote our best practices, how they get the preliminary information when the idea came, and so on. That is our idea. Something to add? Maybe?
Thank you. Actually, quite a lot has been already said about our idea, but it all comes to get with this one. So the idea was that if we had done networking for 10 years, I think we all know something which we have solved and made a great solution on something, whether it's renewing our web page or doing cooperation with different stakeholders and so on and so on. So could we do a real market where different NSUs are in a way selling solutions and which they are the most proud of, and then these people, participants, can either buy or steal those ideas and put it on those lorries. And the best possible outcome is that after 1 week, for instance, people will contact each other and ask questions how I can do that in my country. And we think that the best way to do that is to bring those people actually responsible for these success stories. There can be someone not from the NSU, but working in NRN. That was our idea. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Pilar. You can take the microphone. So, thank you first of all for bearing with our weirdness and engaging with the idea. But think about the idea. What we did want you to do is first of all give us ideas. You've done that. You've given us lots to go on. But I like the fact that you've engaged with everything. Lots of trolleys, lots of WoW, lots of Batman. So, but also, one of the things is we say that we go away from these events and we don't remember how, what was discussed, the content of what was discussed. We've got some very visual images, and that's something that we, at the moment, think is something we should be using more in how we communicate what we do. It's come up this morning, it's come up again. I think we're going to reflect on a lot of this, and thanks for your input, but lots that you said about target audiences and what the message is and who you want to reach that helps us to look at how we can plan this together. That's us at coffee time. So go away, chat some more, discuss some more, do the networking that you're also meant to do at these events. And Gaia, I know you can hear me. What time do you want us back? Yep, half an hour for now, half an hour coffee and break. Thank you. See you back here.